Welcome. Great. We've got one person in chat. Awesome. And this is Max. I heard a lot about you yesterday after the show. So it's good to have you here. Hookers and blow. I'm going to save that for the weekend. It's a working day tomorrow. Okay. For the one viewer, two viewers I have now, what we're going to do today is I wanted to go back to the original opening statements made by the lawyers, kind of see if they've proven what they said they were going to prove, see how they've changed their attitudes, see how they've changed their games, see what's different about the witnesses, just sort of take this retro look back. Glad to have both of you here. We need to get about 900 more. I guess about 3,900 more hours and another 300 viewers, and then I can start doing the grift and making the jack off this. Well, that sounded bad, didn't it? To make the money off of this, we're not gonna make a jack off of this. But hey, it's great. I've got two more people here than I originally expected, so let's get into it. Go back first to the opening statements by Ben Chu, who is Johnny Depp's lawyer, and let me know what you guys think. Is he still the same? He's going to say what he's going to be proving during his case, and let me know if you think he's followed through with what he said he was going to do, and we'll talk about it as we go. Bring up ye oldie video and fire away.
Good morning. My name is Ben Chu. My colleagues and I from Brown Rudnick are truly honored to represent the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp. Some of you may recognize Mr. Depp from seeing him portray characters such as Edward Scissorhands or Captain Jack Sparrow from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
A nice 1980s
For
Scissorhands
nearly
blast.
30 years, Mr. Depp built a reputation as one of the most talented actors in Hollywood. A respected artist whose name was associated with success at the box office. Today, his name is associated with a lie. A false
Are we still
statement
there yet?
uttered by his former wife.
Is there anybody that still thinks he's lying, that he did this? I don't know if there is anyone that still thinks he's done it or not.
Mr. Depp.
Good morning, new people. 21 Jump Street. What's eating Gilbert Grape? No, what's eating Gilbert Grape?
Who would violently abuse a woman. This is a defamation case. It's a case about how devastating words can be when they are false and uttered publicly. Under the law, a person who makes a false
Welcome to the
statement about
Netherlands.
someone else can be held responsible
Now
for the harm.
This is something I think that we tend to forget about this trial. It's not about whether he abused her or not, in essence. It's whether she lied in the article where she said that he abused her. If he did, if she can prove to the jury's satisfaction that he committed DA even one time, he loses his case. If there's any truth to the statement in her article whatsoever, he loses the case. And I understand that under Virginia law, there's 7 jurors on this, and they all have to be unanimous. All 7 have to agree that she completely and totally lied. That's a pretty heavy burden. But I think we get kind of just caught up too much with what did he do? What did she do? That's not essentially the issue. It's whether they can prove that he did this and that she was honest, or whether Johnny Depp's side can prove that she lied in the article. So now he's giving the definition of what defamation is.
That results from that falsehood. That's because words matter. They paint a picture in our mind based on what we have experienced and what we know, or what we think we know. And because of that, words can evoke strong emotions in the listener and cause irreparable harm to a person's reputation.
And he's saying his
And when,
reputation
like
was
Mr.
damaged
Depp, your
to
career
the tune of $50
depends
million.
upon your image and your reputation, or whether movie producers want their films associated with you, that harm can be particularly devastating.
Excuse me while I do my Amber Heard.
This is a case about the impact of Amber Heard's words on Johnny Depp. Specifically, the words that she used in an op-ed published in the Washington Post in December 2018, which is shown on the screen.
She looks the same. She still has that
And
cold,
the op-ed was
dead-eye
published,
stare.
and this is no accident, the evidence will show, on the eve of her first major acting role in the movie Aquaman.
She's
The
dead
evidence will
unless she's
show
acting.
That's no coincidence.
And here's the 3 points that they wanted to show.
The words that Ms. Heard used, which are the subject of Mr. Depp's defamation suit against her. And there are 3 statements that we respectfully ask each of you to focus on. Statement number 1, quote, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath." Statement number 2, 2 years ago,
I'm petting my dog down here.
I became a public figure representing
I promise.
domestic abuse. And I want to repeat that because you're going to hear that throughout the case, because the timing here is critical. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. Statement number 3, quote, "I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse," unquote. Ms. Heard did not use Mr. Depp's name in the op-ed. She didn't have to. She didn't have to.
And that's her defense.
Because
Well, I never
evidence will
named
show
him.
that everyone in Hollywood, where Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard both have their careers,
And so that's
many
the
others
argument he's
outside
making is you
Hollywood,
don't have to use his name. Everybody knows
exactly.
you were talking about Depp because you were married to him
when
2
she
years
used
before
the
this.
word 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse. That's because, as the evidence will show, and you will hear, 2 years earlier, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard had publicly accused Johnny Depp, her husband at the time, of domestic abuse.
Let me know in the chat over here what you guys
You
think.
will learn during the
Have they
trial
proven
that Ms.
these
Heard's
points
actions were
are
prompted
lies?
by Mr. Depp's request for a divorce,
There's my bulldog
He
Strawberry
wanted out.
back there.
which drove her to make up a story that was, at first, designed to keep him. And then, when he made it clear that finally, after all he had endured, he was done, was designed to recast herself as an abuse survivor, with Mr. Depp as the alleged abuser. The evidence will show that 6 days after Mr. Depp requested a divorce, and he did so politely,
Hey, from
and
UK,
3 days
Nicole,
after
nice to
Ms.
see you.
Heard's lawyer threatened Mr. Depp with claims of abuse if he did not agree to her financial demands, Ms. Heard arrived at the courthouse in Los Angeles, California, to file for a restraining order alleging abuse.
The
Ms.
timing.
Heard, the evidence will show that Ms. Heard
He reminds
showed
me
up
of
with
someone,
a
and I
mark
can't
on
think
her
of who it
face
is.
that mysteriously appeared 6 days after she last saw Mr. Depp. And 6 days before, she publicly filed a request.
That's an important point. When she went to file for the restraining order against him, she brought all the paparazzi, she brought her PR team, she made sure everybody was there to show the bruises when she was coming out of court, and she did it while he was away, so he couldn't participate. He's going to mention that here too. So the whole thing was staged, and that's why you got a lot of the testimony about the timing. Did you see her with anything on her face? Did you see her with any marks? Did you see any cuts? Because there's a gap of 6 days between the last time he saw her and the day she went to the court. So they're trying to say when he left, she had a clean face and she put on the makeup bruises and whatnot so she could get the sympathy from the judge and get the restraining order.
Request for a domestic violence restraining order alleging abuse. The evidence will show that her publicist and the paparazzi were there at the courthouse to document the event, to make sure that Johnny Depp's name was forever associated with the image of an innocent, battered woman.
And I think they've proven that point.
It was a jolt. It was a shocking story, splashed across front pages across the country. No one had ever, in 5 decades, accused Johnny Depp of being violent with a woman.
And that is such an important point.
Ever accused Mr. Depp of being violent with a woman.
Now, for those of you that are just joining, we're going back and we're reviewing the opening statements to see whether they've proved their points or not. So while they're on their little sidebar here thing, again, welcome everybody. Glad to have you here. Go back through this and see if both sides have proven their points, kind of get a feel of how the lawyers have changed, how strategies have changed, how they've acting, how the principal people are acting. And while we're doing that, tonight's poison is a delicious Blanton's bourbon. It's a green bottle. This is a Blanton's bourbon from Australia. It's only available in Australia. Yeah, that's tonight's poison, and enjoying a lovely pipe full of tobacco while we do it. Red Eye Good, hey, I just answered your question. That's what we're doing here. And looking at Johnny Depp has cleaned up, he's sharpened up, and I think he's presenting a much better image than he did this initial couple of days with the wild hair.
One, as I stated before, no one had ever, in 5 decades, no one had ever accused
Mega Pints
of being abusive of any kind with a woman. That's why it was such.
Max Mura.
He had been in other long-term relationships.
It's a Kentucky product, but
they had 2 children.
It was originally marketed in Japan, and it sold so well they decided to market it in the U.S. But the ones they
by choosing to
export
lie
to
about her husband for her.
Let me turn this off and nerd out on bourbon for a second. The bourbon they export to Australia is proofed down to 40% because Australia taxes the alcohol according to the percentage of alcohol in it. So the green bottles are 40% Blantons that are marketed in Australia.
Benefit. Amber Heard forever changed Mr. Depp's life and reputation. And you will hear him tell you the dreadful impact that it has had on his life.
I disagree. I think it's a real place, but that's sort of like where
evidence
God
here at this trial
just sort of had fun
contradicts the story
and just did stuff, made spiders with 1,000 legs and put all the poisonous animals there.
In December 2008,
just kind of made it as a joke. Platypuses.
The evidence
just
will
having
show
fun.
that the last time Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard saw each other before Ms. Heard showed up in court on May 27th, 2016, was May 21st. And that's a very important date. And I will ask you, please, to remember that through the trial. Mr. Depp's mother, Betty Sue, passed away on May 20th after a long illness when Johnny and his sister Christy had been taking care of his mother for a very long period of time. And for reasons that Mr. Depp will personally explain to you throughout the course of this trial, he had resolved to divorce Ms. Heard. So on May 21st, Mr. Depp came by the apartment that he shared with Ms. Heard in the Eastern Columbia building, or the ECB, as some people refer to it, to tell her that, to pick up his things.
She aggravates me with her theatrics, Nicole says. I wonder if she's going to be
There is
theatrical
no
and cross.
dispute that soon after Mr. Depp ended things with Ms. Heard
I think
and
she'll
left
get
the
angry.
apartment on May 21st, he got on a plane to head out on a European tour, a music tour, for months with his band, the Hollywood Vampires. And Ms. Heard
Can anybody name the people off the top of your head that are in the Hollywood Vampires? Let me know in the chat if you can name the Hollywood Vampires without looking it up. 10 seconds.
Knew that he was going off on tour and out of state when she walked into court to get the restraining order, which
his rock group Hollywood Vampires is him, Alice Cooper, and Joe Perry, the guitarist from Aerosmith. So that's when they talk about his group and the Hollywood Vampires, that's who it is. It's Johnny Depp, Alice Cooper, and Joe Perry from Aerosmith.
she obtained ex parte. It's a Latin word, fancy word, but all it means is that Mr. Depp and his lawyer were not there and had no opportunity to be heard.
Yeah, when she filed that restraining order, she made sure he was on the other side of the planet.
You will hear from the police officers who responded to a 911 call on May 21st after Mr. Depp left. The police officers will testify that they saw no injuries on Ms. Heard. Both police officers will testify that they saw no injuries on Ms. Heard.
I think they did that. I think they proved that point.
Nor did the police officers see any of the property damages that you will hear Ms. Heard claims existed in the apartments that evening. And you will hear those officers.
Welcome, Nessie. Good to see you back in the chat after the Mega Pints of Burden comment.
And there was no crime. You will also hear from multiple witnesses who, like the police officers, saw Ms. Heard between May 21 and May 26. Those are the crucial days between the alleged incident and the day she walked into court with her lawyer and got an ex parte.
She still has just those dead eyes. She hasn't changed a bit. The only time she ever shows emotion is when she's on cue to emote
that
for the
they
jury.
saw her without any marks, any signs of injury on her face. And you will hear from multiple witnesses, including Brandon Patterson, who is the manager of the Eastern Columbia building, where Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard lived together.
So far, I think we're doing good on him proving his points.
Hear Mr. Patterson say
they had the police,
and others will say,
there was no marks on her between that date
video from the week of May 21st
and the day she went into court to get the
that
restraining
showed
order.
Ms. Heard's sister, Whitney, throw a fake punch at Ms. Heard's face. Now, let's just stop there. This is a surveillance video you will hear about where the sister of the alleged victim threw a fake punch at her sister, which allegedly occurred, this incident, only a couple of days earlier. Ms. Heard acting out being punched, responding to the fake punch, and the two laughing about it. So you have the alleged victim and the sister laughing about a fake punch. And you will have to decide for yourself, or we ask that you please decide for yourself. Would anyone ever joke about that if there had been actual abuse?
Yeah, she gets her face punched in, and then a couple days later, she's joking about it with her sister.
Ever joke with an alleged victim about being punched by her husband? Of course, none of this contradicting evidence was publicly available when Ms. Heard walked into court on May 27th and got her restraining order. Instead, as you can imagine, the media storm was instantaneous. You will hear about and see some of that media coverage, which published pictures of Ms. Heard walking into court and other pictures, supposedly showing injuries, supposedly caused by Ms.
Now, this has been mentioned before, and does it look in that picture like she's done her makeup to look like she has a bruise there? The way that's shadowed. To me, that just looks like she was intentionally trying to look bruised for the jury. I mean, does anyone else have that same creepy vibe about that particular image?
Mr. Depp. a man who had never been accused of abuse of a woman. The evidence will show that Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard eventually settled their divorce out of court. Thereafter, Ms. Heard dismissed her restraining order against Mr. Depp.
He's looking like Gary Oldman. Could be, or like a thin version of the grandpa from Up.
Had abused her, remained in the public sphere. It didn't go away. The images were permanent. And the evidence will show that 2 years later, which is why we're pointing to that reference in the op-ed, in the wake of the Me Too movement, and just before the release of Ms. Heard's role in the movie Aquaman, Ms. Heard chose to remind the world about the festering allegations, this time under the banner of a international newspaper, the Washington Post.
Only fine gentlemen such as yourself can appreciate the behavior of how effing crazy this woman is. I hope all men can understand how effing crazy this woman is.
But this time with a wider audience primed to take action against industry powerhouses accused of abuse.
And again, this is the important thing is, as I said, yes, Nessie, that's who I was thinking of. Thank you. That's who he's reminding me of. Great. Thank you. You win the bonus internet points for the night. As I forgot totally what I was saying here.
Evidence will show that the clear implication in Ms. Heard's op-ed that you have in front of you was that she was the victim of domestic abuse perpetrated by Mr. Depp. The evidence will show that that was a lie, and it remains a lie when it was repeated and republished 2 years later. Hollywood.
Okay, that's what I was going to say when I lost my train of thought. That this is an aging thing, and part of my ADHD. My mind goes like 4 steps ahead of itself. As I mentioned on Andrew Legal Mindsets program last night, at the beginning of this trial, I was pretty convinced that he was guilty. Because when she went and got this restraining order, she convinced a judge that she had been assaulted and needed legal protection from him. I felt inclined to believe him because prejudgments about his drug use, his alcohol abuse, and I could see him doing what he was alleged to have done. But then, as he mentioned, in 50 years, in leading up to this, people could have Me Too bandwagoned onto his case if there'd been any incidences. Every single ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, ex-employee has had nothing but good things to say about him. And again, the total lack of evidence. So it's at this point in time, nobody was questioning that he had done this. Everyone assumed that he had done it. And by everyone, I mean the majority of people. So I think what he's saying here is a valid point. I actually watched Gone Girl last night, says Red Eye Good. I haven't watched it. I guess I should do it because that keeps getting mentioned throughout the trial. And the trial in the UK must have been a clown show. From what I understand, it was. The judge was simping hard for Amber. I don't know if you guys can hear my dog snorting in the background, but it's not me. The judge was apparently simping quite hard for Amber Heard and just sort of said, oh, it's obvious that this happened. And before we get back, I've had SWAT called to my house for a domestic disturbance because some furniture stripper was yelling at my friend in the front yard. Yikes. I've seen the goalie pulled because someone didn't propose. Man. I think because of this is one thing that's going to put the nail in the Me Too coffin. And it's going to, as we talked about with Andrew again, it's if he wins this case, that's going to discourage so many people that are legitimate victims of abuse from coming forward, because I believe they're going to assume that because of cases like this, they're not going to be taken seriously. And that's a sad, frightening prospect.
Hollywood studios don't want to deal with the public.
I agree Amber should be jailed for plagiarism, Breezy, but that is almost never prosecuted.
Even someone with the incredible body of work and record that Mr. Depp can be proud of. A false allegation can devastate a career.
And it devastated his career. His career is devastated. But I think he's going to work again.
Devastate a family. And the evidence will show.
Nessie says it sets all of us survivors back a minimum of 20 years.
Significant impact on Mr. Depp's family and his ability to work in the profession he loved and loved to bring joy to everyone. Ultimately, this trial is about clearing Mr. Depp's name of a terrible and false allegation.
What are you
We
doing back
ask
there,
you
dog?
in the next several weeks to please carefully consider the evidence, assess the reliability and credibility of that evidence, and to make your own determination about what actually happened between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard. And to tell you more about that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Camille Vasquez, who you had the pleasure of meeting yesterday. Thank you all for your attention.
And that's the end of that particular Law and Cuck video there. And got the dogs here. It's pulling my bag off the couch back there. But now we'll go into the Camille Vasquez opening statements and see that I would live. Red Eye goes to show the dogs. They're heavy. There's the butt of one. Yeah, they're 23 kilogram, 50-pound bulldogs. I can't really lift them up. Breezy says she wants it prosecuted. Breezy said, well, I want it prosecuted. Make me judge if you don't like bed shitters. If you do like bed shitters, I don't want to know about it. Really. So what do we think so far about what we've seen from the opening statements from Ben Chu? I think he's done a good job of proving what he said they were going to prove. There was plenty of witnesses to say that she didn't have any marks on her face when Johnny Depp left to England, and mysteriously she had a bruise on her face 6 days later. They showed that her and her sister were joking about being punched in the face a couple of days later. And what they said, the police, they've done the two police officers that came and said there was nothing, and so they left. I think we're doing, yeah, my dogs, they don't go outside unless, so they don't step on bees. Nancy says, my dog stepped on a bee. All right, what do you got here? We have hard to pin down. Her expert witness, Dr. Karen, has been pumping false narrative her whole career. Probably got, well, these witnesses like Dr. Karen are hired guns. It's, if you need an expert, you can pay some expert enough money to say anything you need them to say in court. And then it becomes a battle of the experts. Mario Batali was acquitted this week of his allegations, which was indecent assault and battery. And I just posted a video an hour ago talking about the Mario Batali case and judgment. So go over there and check that out if you want to see what his accuser was like. She was a piece of work. And the judge basically said she had zero credibility. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I give him a 7.5, says Red Eye Good. I think it's a fair assessment. I think he proved all of his points. He just didn't do it in as dynamic a fashion as he could have, I think. And Dr. Huge Liar is a joke, says Nessie. Yes, she is. And Dr. Hughes also looks evil and cold. Brandon, Mario Batali has touched me before, but I actually enjoyed it. All right, well let's move on to some Camille. I'm Team Camille. Unfortunately, I hear she's in a long-term relationship and she probably wants nothing to do with someone 20 years older than her living in a foreign country. But we can always hope. Now, this audio isn't good at the beginning. She hasn't changed that expression through this whole thing. I'm disinterested. I'm above you. I really hate the coldness in her eyes.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Ben. And good morning. Over the course of this trial, you're going to have an opportunity to get to know Johnny Depp.
Brandon says, don't you think Chu is smart, just not overly articulate, refined, but his personality kind of meshes with JD?
You will hear from Mr. Depp directly.
I think he's very smart.
But you will also hear from his friends.
It'll take him a while to get her microphone fixed.
You will hear from people who have known him for decades. They have seen him at his best.
She only laughed at Isaac Berg. How could you not laugh at him? I think over the weekend I'm going to have a lot to drink and watch him and the vaping doorman testimony.
Who have never and would never raise a hand to a woman. You will hear that Mr. Depp learned at a very young age how to coexist with an abusive woman. You will learn from Mr. Depp's sister, Christy.
Nicole, I really liked this opening from Camille. I liked it too. It's just unfortunate she read it. It could have had so much more power if she would have delivered it. But I don't know why it was read, but it was. But I think she's definitely come into her own since this time. She's relaxed, she's opened up, and she's becoming more aggressive.
His father coped with that abuse in the same way his father did. He just took it. The evidence will show that Mr. Depp learned that the best way to deal with violence was to leave, to get away from it. Give her time to cool down.
And I think they proved that very well, that he avoided conflict, he took it, and then he left. And she tried to co-opt that in her statements, which I really hated. Everything she said that she did was exactly what Camille said that Johnny Depp did.
He first learned to be a musician, then became an actor. And eventually, thanks to his talent, his dedication, and a lot of hard work, grew into one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Max says, I get the point about how JD could lose his case if one person on the jury believes there was at least one case of DA or SA. However, won't the tsunami of false claims and bad acting negate that? I hope it does. I hope it does.
Vanessa Paradis, for 14 years. He had 2 children with her. And even though he was a megastar, they had a quiet domestic life. In fact, you'll hear, as Mr. Chu already told you, that in Mr. Depp's 58 years, not a single woman has ever accused him of violence.
And especially after the bandwagoning effect that could have happened with the Me Too movement.
Reason to believe he was an abuser.
Not one person.
Ms. Heard publicly accused him in 2016. You're also going to hear evidence about Ms. Heard.
And Nessie says this case definitely shows that like attracts like. JD has warm and not stressed crew. AH has the cringe crew. Yeah, she is that aggressive personality, the type that would be a committer of DA. And her lawyers are unnecessarily aggressive. We talked about that before. Why are they bulldog attacking an accountant? Why are they going after a doorman? I mean, they're pointlessly aggressive and needlessly aggressive, and it comes off looking really, really bad, I think.
You're going to learn that she's a profoundly troubled person who manipulates the people around her, just like she manipulated Mr. Depp.
Well, I think it's hard to pin down. Says this week off may torpedo AH's case. Gives the plaintiff lots of time to refute her claim. Seems it already has. I'm sure they are scouring YouTube to look for things. I'm sure they're going through this with a fine-tooth comb in the case. I'm sure they're preparing some great arguments. Plus, it's given the jury a week to stew about this, and they're not supposed to look at any outside media. They're not supposed to look into the case. But if they do and they don't mention it, who's going to know? And if they do go on any social media or look at any news reports, they're going to see what everybody thinks about it.
Ms. Heard came to Los Angeles and sought a career in acting after Mr. Depp was well established as a movie star. Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard first met in 2009 on the set of the film The Rum Diary. There was a significant age difference between them, and at first he avoided her advances, but she pursued him. She wooed him. The evidence will show that Ms. Heard went to great lengths to win him over by playing the doting girlfriend, and it worked. He fell head over heels in love with her. Those who watched this relationship develop saw red flags all over the place. You will hear from them.
Johnny Depp saw the red flags too,
time,
but I think it was his abusive, his growing up in this kind of a DA environment with his family that he didn't see the red flags. He didn't appreciate them.
Sometimes things would get better, but it would always happen again. The evidence will show that Mr. Depp started coping with Ms. Heard in the same way he did as a child. He would try to get away, avoid the conflict. But his trying to leave enraged Ms. Heard.
Brandon says devil's advocate Amber Heard is insane and is going to be prepped to the wind for her cross, yes. She also still has more direct right. It's going to be a wild battle when it resumes.
She would tell him he was a coward.
She's being prepped, but I think Camille is going to trigger her in some way. And she's going to get angry and standoffish and is going to go totally pear-shaped for her.
Heard equated anger and violence with passion. She would apologize with poetic excuses, as if the violence just proved how fierce and overwhelming her love for him was. And you're going to hear that when Ms. Heard got violent, Mr. Depp would just retreat, just as he did with his mother.
I was just checking the time here because I don't want to go over 11 o'clock because an hour of me is enough and there's other places to be for you guys. But Burst of Beauty 380 says it's ridiculous how there is plenty of evidence and witnesses to the DV that JD has gone through, while Heard has pretty much nothing but selfies of a supposed bruise from him. Yeah, there's that one selfie it's not hand-shaped, it's just this round thing. And if you're grabbed, it's going to leave the fingerprints. I've seen bruising like that. And the selfies, that's the only selfie. She takes pictures of everything. Ping pong tables, floors, windows, mirrors, him sleeping in 400 different locations, but not a single one of the actual damage to her body.
He would try to leave, to get away from her.
And how sad is that you have to rent 2 hotel rooms, one for you to be together and then one for you to escape to when you know she's going to blow up.
Lock the doors. Wait out Ms. Heard's aggression. But his leaving just provoked her more. You will hear from Mr. Depp's security people, like Sean Bett, about how they often had to remove Mr. Depp from scenes with Ms. Heard, screaming at him, chasing him, trying to keep him from leaving. You're going to hear evidence that when Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard traveled together, his team routinely had to book an extra room.
How sad is that?
Him, so that he had somewhere to go when Ms. Heard became enraged. You'll hear from other witnesses, including Mr. Depp.
Nessie Gardner, if you're grabbed the way she said she was, the bruising would have fingerprints and be more spread out. You're exactly correct.
As the aggressor in the relationship. Ms. Heard as the aggressor in the relationship.
Yes, she
The
was.
one who would strike Mr. Depp to try to keep him from leaving.
And they presented witnesses
The medical professionals
to that effect.
who were with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, often on a daily basis, for years. including their doctor, David Kipper, and Ms. Heard's personal nurse, her personal assigned nurse, Erin Beren Falati, who did not see any signs of injuries that Ms. Heard later testified to in graphic detail.
That's her own nurse.
Wants you to ignore
didn't
the
see
testimony
anything.
of these medical professionals who saw her in real time. Just as she wants you to ignore the testimony of the police officers who testified under oath, who saw her on May 21st, 2016, without any injuries. But it is up to you, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, to judge the credibility of these witnesses. And
I think all of his witnesses have been highly credible, and hers have been stellarly incredible.
Photos that supposedly show injuries she sustained as a result of the claimed abuse by Mr. Depp.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you should keep in mind when you see these photographs. First, the evidence and expert testimony from a forensic pathologist, a doctor, will show that the injuries reflected in these photographs are not consistent with the brutal allegations of abuse Ms. Heard has alleged.
Absolutely agree, and I think they proved that.
There are multiple witnesses, including medical professionals and police officers, who will testify that they did not observe the injuries supposedly reflected in these photographs. And you may be wondering, how can that be? Well, you will hear expert testimony that none of these photographs are the originals, not one. And many are stored in an editing program. So they could have been manipulated and cannot be confirmed as authentic.
That's also a very important thing. Those pictures, they would not release the metadata. And I believe the lawyers were sanctioned for not releasing the metadata. But so there's no idea. And like I said, some of them were stored in editing programs, no metadata to show when, where, and how they were edited. I hope the jury remembers these things. I'm sure they'll bring them back up on their closing.
Importantly, you will not see a single photograph of the vast majority of the abuse alleged by Ms. Heard. Not one. And
Part of it, she might find work on Hooker Hill and Seoul unless no, there is a place called Hooker Hill, and that's kind of what it is. But again, there's some that's just not worth it.
The report of an injury during their relationship was a severe one, and it was sustained by Mr. Depp.
Mm-hmm.
After an argument shortly after their marriage, while the couple was in Australia.
And again, Nessie says here, where's the doctor's report from after the supposed SA event? She would have to get checked if that happened. It doesn't exist. I mean, especially if she was savaged with a Maker's Mark bottle. You would need medical attention. I won't get any more detailed than that, but you would need medical attention. So why Max Murray says, so while we won't do anything different, we can expect that he'll be courteous and chivalrous with his counsel, Camille. Yep. And he goes on to say, and I predict even if he's not trolling or doing anything different, the narcissist in H will boil over with the outrage. A pointed cross from an attractive woman will tip AH. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Is I don't know if she should be aggressive and go after her kind of on her own level, or keep it calm and slowly draw out the anger in her.
You will hear evidence that the people who cared about Mr. Depp were encouraging him to have a prenuptial agreement with Ms. Heard. But she rushed the wedding date.
Oh, that's so stupid. I just do not understand this. The fact that the woman doesn't want a prenup is a big red flag.
A post-nuptial agreement. When the topic came up, Ms. Heard became outraged, as she always did, at the suggestion that Mr. Depp might leave her.
You're correct, Nicole.
She berated him, and when he tried to leave, she became violent.
Mm-hmm.
She became so violent, in fact, she threw a vodka bottle at him that hit his hand and exploded. It severed the end.
Erupted like Mount Vesuvius, I believe he said.
You'll see pictures of Mr. Depp's severed finger. and learn about his emergency medical treatment for that injury.
Good.
And then you'll learn, and this is important, years later, after the false claims of abuse that caused Mr. Depp to file this very lawsuit, Ms. Heard came up with an elaborate story about what actually happened, according to her, in Australia. And what she said happened was that it was a 3-day hostage affair, an episode, where she was violently attacked and then sexually assaulted by Mr. Depp.
Mm-hmm.
You will see for yourself that the evidence does not support the story she told after she was sued.
You think she'll lose her temper? Asks Nicole H. That's interesting. I think she'll try and control it, but I think she'll get triggered and she'll show her frustration, her anger, and outrage at the situation, I think.
2016, Mr. Depp's mother, Betty Sue, passed away. You will hear from Mr. Depp.
Brandon Lesko says if they can't lay foundation for literally any of the evidence, why did JD's team stipulate all this BS? Compromise, get what they wanted in, and just confident they'll win in court?
And that Ms. Heard was not going to change.
I would just be speculating. I have no idea why some of the things are in and some of the things are out.
This experience can change your perspective on what is important for your own well-being. So Mr. Depp resolved to finally divorce Ms. Heard and told her that very day that he would do so respectfully and, most importantly, discreetly. The evidence will show that on May 21st, 2016, when Mr. Depp went over to the Eastern Columbia building to gather his things, Ms. Heard caused a final dramatic scene. In the wreckage of their relationship, Ms. Heard spun the final encounter between them into a tale of domestic abuse. Now, I understand that many of you may be asking yourselves, why? Why did Ms. Heard say that Mr. Depp abused her during their relationship if it didn't actually happen?
I don't remember this part of the opening.
Detailed, dramatic tales of abuse that you will surely hear in this courtroom over the coming weeks. By the end of this trial, you will have the answer to that question. The evidence will show exactly who Ms. Heard is. You will hear from Mr. Depp and other witnesses, including their marriage counselor, Dr.
Oh my God, this snoring. It's just great success. Can you guys hear the dog snoring?
Resort to physical violence to stop Mr. Depp from leaving her. But once Mr. Depp did leave, Ms. Heard tried to avoid public humiliation and present herself as a noble survivor and representative of the Me Too movement.
She wanted the attention. She wanted to be a figurehead. She wanted to use it to further her career, which it did.
Personal assistant, Kate James, that Ms. Heard is obsessed with her public image. It's her #1 priority. And you will see evidence that after she received a $7 million divorce settlement from Mr. Depp, Ms. Heard released a public statement claiming she wanted nothing from him.
Oh, that makeup, that contouring is driving me nuts.
Two charities: the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles in California and the American Civil Liberties Union.
The Children's Hospital. Way to not pay your money to the Children's Hospital. You horrible woman.
The donations. Quite simply,
I don't care if the ACLU gets
Ms.
money or
Heard
not.
publicly cast herself
The Children's
in
Hospital.
the role of a domestic abuse survivor. There was no going back. When Mr. Depp finally stood up and fought for his good name in court by filing this lawsuit, Ms. Heard, because she couldn't back down, went all in. After this lawsuit was filed, and it's important, the timeline here, after this lawsuit was filed, Ms. Heard started making up more and more alleged incidents.
All of these stories keep growing. There's like new stories have been coming, even up to the Russian trip in trial. That was the first time anybody heard of it.
Sexual violence.
And each incident gets worse and worse. More incidents and worse incidents.
Ms. Heard had never made that accusation against Mr. Depp. It was never part of her allegations of abuse. So what changed?
Look, the kids will get their money as soon as she finds the next rich dick to con. Okay. Elon only paid 500,000 of
The
it.
evidence will show when she realized the seriousness of what she had alleged, she panicked and she alleged sexual assault.
I love the words Camille uses. So she's very direct.
Horrific tales of abuse before this trial is over. But the horrific details are designed. They're designed to shock you and to overwhelm you. They are designed to be explosive. And they are designed to distract you from the evidence and, most importantly, from common sense. That tells you, the common sense and the evidence will tell you that it is all a lie. That none of this, not one single alleged incident of abuse, could have happened as Ms. Heard claims.
That's a very good point. Not a single episode of abuse, the way she's explained it, could have happened. If it was, if something did happen, she has ruined the credibility by conflating it and enlarging it to an unbelievable proportion. Nicole A. says, any man with half a brain will keep away from that. There's a lot of men that think with the other brain. She'll still, unfortunately, find someone.
Is consistent. She tells a lie, then covers up that lie with still more lies in a constantly changing, evolving, ever more dramatic story. You're going to hear a lot about Mr. Depp during this trial. Ms. Heard is going to tell you a lot of things about him. That he abused drugs and alcohol. That he used bad and offensive language. And it's true that Mr. Depp has had real struggles with substance.
Dothraki Dani says, oh my God, she'll get the vid and delay the inevitable.
People close to you who have struggled too.
But I bet 5 she'll try.
But struggling with drugs and alcohol doesn't make you an abuser.
And that's where I made my mistake. Drugs and alcohol don't make you an abuser. I sort of fell with that. Okay, that makes sense. It's a possibility.
And you probably don't use.
And they sort of
them frequently.
alleviated that
Mr. Depp,
image
like
that I
all
had.
of us, is not perfect. But he did not abuse Ms. Heard. All of this is
Men
just
don't think with
meant
their
to distract
brains.
you from what this case
There's
is
not the
about.
big one.
This case is about what Ms. Heard said in her op-ed. The evidence will show that Ms. Heard painted a picture of herself as a heroic, innocent survivor of abuse by Mr. Depp, a beaten woman who finally stood up to her tormentor. The evidence will show that Ms. Heard used her allegations against Mr. Depp to raise her own profile and to advance.
Nicole asks, why on earth did her legal team go along with some of her far-fetched accounts? They're not great lawyers to begin with. They don't have much trial experience. She doesn't have super top-level lawyers. But as a lawyer, you work for your client.
And the title on her Twitter page.
If they tell you to make an argument, you need to make it unless you know for a fact it's a lie.
On women's rights.
You can't knowingly allow your client to lie, and you can't knowingly tell a lie and not suffer some sort of ethical violations. So as long as they have even a little bit of room to believe that she's telling the truth, they need to make the arguments on her behalf.
Innocent women across the country and the world who have truly suffered abuse. The evidence will show that was a lie. And the evidence will show that Ms. Heard betrayed Mr. Depp as the representative of abusers everywhere.
Jasper Cochran asks a great question. Do you think jurors treat what actors, actresses say with more suspicion? I would imagine there would be some of that. Okay, these people are trained actors, so what they're doing here and what their behavior is acting. I don't know if they would think what they're saying is acting. I mean, Amber comes off just naturally like she's reading from a script, and whenever she loses the plot, she's I can't remember the specifics. It's all vague, but I remember there was a blue light. But what I think they would probably have a little more difficulty dealing with is hearing about all these lavish trips and asking for $50 million. And it's sort of out of the scope of what normal people deal with. So there might be a lack of sympathy, but I don't know if they'll have more suspicion about the testimony itself.
The agent of her suffering, the villain in her heroic journey, that was a lie too. And more than just a lie, it was an act of cruelty. Mr. Depp will go to his grave knowing that whatever he does, there are people out there in this world who will always believe that he believes.
I don't know if there's many of those people left in the world. I think Johnny's going to come out pretty good.
This is a case about what Ms. Heard said. It's also a case about what a man named Adam Waldman said. Adam Waldman is a lawyer who has worked for Mr. Depp. After Mr. Depp filed this case against her, Ms. Heard
I guess I can get rid of that, huh?
claim against Mr. Depp.
You're welcome.
Which is also the subject of this trial. In her claim, Ms. Heard says that Mr. Depp defamed her because Adam Waldman, his attorney, made some statements to report.
See, if whatever Johnny does, she does. The clothing, the actions, the comment. Johnny said this happened, so she has to say this happened.
Ms. Heard chose not to name him in her claim.
Johnny Depp sues her for $50 million, so she sues him for $100 million. It's just ridiculous. It's so transparently narcissistic.
That those statements weren't even made by Mr. Depp. They were made by Adam Waldman. And Mr. Waldman, the evidence will show, is not.
What if, Nicole asks, what if one or two members of the jury has a strong personality and overpowers the other jurors? Yeah, it's got to be a unanimous verdict in his favor or against him.
And friend, Mr. Depp.
So it has been known to happen where one person will hold out and refuse to change their opinion. You get a hung jury. You get to do it all again.
Statements merely reflected the reality that we intend to prove in this trial. That Ms. Heard's portrayal of herself as a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Mr. Depp is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Heard, as you know, is an actress. When she accused Mr. Depp of abuse and painted herself before the world as a representative of abuse victims everywhere, Ms. Heard took on the role of a lifetime.
Maxie makes some good comments there. I was always wondering if that was sort of an affect that Johnny Depp puts on in his voice when he talks, but he talks like that.
The performance of her life in this trial.
Yeah, she gave the performance of her life in this trial. It's about on par with her acting skills in the movies. Not very good.
And it's about his whole life. His ability to walk down the street, look people in the eye without having them think he's an loser. It's about the truth. And the truth will come out in this trial. At the end of this trial, we will ask you to render a verdict for Mr. Depp. We will ask you to tell the world that he is not the abuser she described.
Mm-hmm.
And that she is not the victim she portrayed. And we will ask you to tell Ms. Heard that what she did was wrong. Thank you very much.
And that's the end of Johnny Depp's opening. The next stream, I'll go through Lady Elaine Fairchild and crew's opening for Amber Heard. But I think overall, going back and looking at this in retrospect, I think they've done a very, very good job of proving the points that they said they were going to prove. It wasn't the most dynamic from either attorney, and I really wish to hell she hadn't read that. It would have been so much more powerful if she would have just delivered it as a speech. But I think they did a great job, and it's going to be interesting to watch Camille cross-examine her next week. And we'll go back and review Amber's opening statements next time. Just wrap up some really quick comments here. Brandon says, from what I have heard, there are 2 Korean males on the jury, and they are at least appearing not to buy any of Amber's BS. Korean men have put up with this. They've put up with the dramatics from from their wives and other. It's kind of a cultural thing. They're two older females who appear to be on board with this nonsense. I certainly hope not. And did anyone notice after the Met Gala, Nessie Gardner says the mimicry Elon suit the next? No, I didn't notice that. I'll have to go back and look at the pictures. Red Eye Good, when you've never been in an abusive relationship, you don't know you're in one until years and years later, and when you realize that you're empty and have no self-worth anymore. I empathize with that. That took me so long to get out of the marital situation I was in for exactly that reason. Hey, guys. Thank you so much, Dothraki Danny. You can close us out. We just found you with Mindset yesterday. Really enjoying your takes. Keep it up. I'm going to try. This is a lot of fun, and it's awesome to have. It's a small group here to start out with, but I hope they'll get more and more. I love interacting with you guys. And right now it's 11 o'clock. We did this for an hour. Thank you so much. We'll try to do this tomorrow or the next day after that. I hope you're all here. Have a great time. I know Andrew's starting another stream now. Go and check him out. You guys are great. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. Love y'all. Talk to you later. Have a good night or day or wherever the hell you may be.